the Democrats' Trump obsession will do them in. Their fixation on former President Trump has robbed them of their basic political instincts. They hate Trump so much they don't care if they're gonna lose everything. These people are not that smart. But before we get started, go ahead, hit that like button, share this out so we can get this information out there. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description. It has a link to my Patreon where I talk about things I can't talk about here, and there's a link to my merch store. All right, let's talk about this news. In 2020, despite gaining control of the White House and the Senate, the Democrats suffered a net loss of 13 seats in the House and a comprehensive down ballot drubbing. And I've reported on all that stuff. And this was hardly a mandate for radical change, yet, upon taking office, President Biden immediately reversed former President Trump's successful energy policies and incentivized illegal immigrants to invade our southern border. Meanwhile, congressional Democrats collaborated with Biden to pass inflationary spending bills and embark upon an unconstitutional crusade to convict Trump of fictitious crimes against the state. This ongoing effort to destroy Trump and all of his works has long since taken precedence over any policy initiative that would benefit voters. And when you ask them what they're standing for, they're not really standing for anything except for pushing this woke ideology, trying to control you through your children, and now the whole abortion deal. That's basically their platform. What else are they standing for? They're not doing anything to help this country or push this country along, and especially in a time right now where everything seems like it's on fire. But consequently, Biden's job approval rating has now dropped below 40% in several major polls, and the Democratic Party is losing the support of independent and Latino voters. An obvious manifestation of their latter phenomenon was the victory of Texas Republican Mayra Flores in last week's special election for the state's 34th congressional district. This was no accident. The GOP invested heavily in the contest while the Democrats virtually ignored it. As Flores put it in an interview last week, she says, quote, "I'm grateful that the Republican Party is finally investing in the Hispanic community. The Democrat Party has completely abandoned us and taken us for granted. They feel entitled to our vote, and they feel like they really don't have to work for it." And the same could be said for the black vote. I mean, I think it's like 80 to 90% of black people vote Democrat, and they don't do anything for us. So why are we still voting this way? Why are we still voting Democrat? I mean, just look at it. They pander to you every year, say they're gonna do this, say they're gonna do that, and then nothing get done. But then you go to the polls again the following year and vote for them again. It makes no sense to me. But she goes on to say, and what we're showing now is that, yes, you do have to work to earn our vote. That's what we won this That's why we won the special election. We knocked on thousands of doors, made thousands of phone calls. I have the most hardworking team, and that is why we're also going to win the re-election in November. That's awesome. I love seeing that. The Democratic Party leadership in Washington was far too busy conducting a Trump inquisition and lying to voters about the January 6th riot to devote any attention to the South Texas special election. Flores took advantage of this blunder by reaching out to the neglected voters, an effort augmented by the National Republican Congressional Committee, the NRCC, and the Texas Republican Party. Not long after her victory, the Texas Tribune reported, quote, "The NRCC and Texas GOP put in $1.1 million for voter contact, according to the NRCC memo released Wednesday, and the state party invested over $500,000 in English and Spanish language mail." This is huge for the GOP. With Flores' defeated opponent, Dan Sanchez, was not pleased with the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee had left him out to dry, but he didn't make much of it in his concession speech. His campaign manager, Colin Steele, has been far less reticent, the Hill reports. Quote, "The DCC The DCCC, the DNC, and other associated national committees have failed in their single purpose of existence, winning elections. The loss in TX34 was a complete and total abdication of duty. But this democratic tendency to take certain voting blocks for granted isn't limited to Hispanics. Darvio Morrow writes in Newsweek that that is even worse for black voters. That's what I alluded to earlier. Um, Darvo says, it is clear to many that the Hispanic vote is far more competitive than Democrats would like them to be, but fewer are willing to accept a possibility more significant trend, the the attrition of black voters that the Democrats are dealing with. Um, but the black vote has been solidly Democratic since 1964. Political prognosticators tend to ignore and even deny the diversity of thought in the black community, and we've seen that the lack of diversity of thought when Trump tried to, I mean not Trump, I'm sorry, when Biden tried to say if you don't vote for me, you're not black. They like thinking like all black people vote the same or think the same, which is totally untrue. But Darvo goes on to say that it's how they miss the fact that for a majority of black voters, being a Democrat does not mean being a liberal, and it certainly doesn't mean being woke, and that's true. But how do Democrats plan to handle voter apathy and defections from their party? They plan to escalate the attacks on Trump while portraying the GOP and its voters as a clear and present danger to democracy. And it's not working. People are hip to this game. They have no idea because they live in a bubble. They live in their own liberal world, so they really don't know what real people really think about them. But this is going to be a rude awakening. They have even exhumed Hillary Clinton and sent her out to scare the voters. In a Friday interview with the Financial Times, she warned, quote, "We are standing on the precipice of losing our democracy, and everything everybody else cares about then goes out the window. Look, the most important thing is to win the next election. The alternative is so frightening that whatever does not help you win should not be a priority." I mean, this is fear mongering, straight up fear mongering. And we know they're the ones that's actually destroying. We're not a democracy in the first place, but they're destroying this country. We're a constitutional republic, as I always state, and they're the ones destroying this. According to a report in the Hill, um, erstwhile President Clinton expressed very similar concerns um, a few days early on CBS, The Late Show. He told host James Corden, quote, "I've never before been as worried about the structure of our democratic form of government." I hate that they keep saying that. We're not a democracy. I mean, we wouldn't have a Senate if we were a democracy. We wouldn't have an electoral college if we were a democracy. We're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. But such statements coming from either of the Clintons are pretty rich considering the long history of legal and political skullduggery for which both are justly notorious. It's just crazy. We all know about the body count, the Clinton body count, but not coincidentally, former President Obama has also been parroting the "democracy is in danger" talking point. During his recent remarks to the Copenhagen Democracy Summit, for example, Obama intoned, "On every continent, embodied autocrats are ramping up oppression." What? They're targeted minority groups. They're often flouting international law. No, you're the one that's targeting people, oppressing people, and censoring people. It's the leftists that's doing this. They're the one that don't want you to use your free speech. But he goes on to say, just as disturbing within democracies, populist appeals grounded in fear and bigotry and resentment have elevated leaders who, once there in office, have sought to systematically undermine democratic institutions and entrench themselves in power. In my own country, the forces that unleash mob violence on our capital are still churning out misinformation and conspiracy theories. See, and that's what they're talking about. He bringing up the whole misinformation thing again. You know, they want the censorship. That's why they pushing that thing. I did a whole video on Camilla Harris and with the disinformation board in another name that's going to be ran by her. But you would note that none of these people actually mentioned Donald Trump or the GOP, yet it could hardly be more obvious with forces, which forces they're talking about. Nor are the Clintons and Obama the only people who've been talking about this. Former Bush speechwriter turned MSNBC talking head Matthew Dowd recently tweeted that conservative Republican judge Ludig didn't just say Trump was a clear and present danger to our democracy. Ludig said Trump's allies and supporters are a clear and present danger as well. Powerful and true. This stuff isn't merely false. It's crazy. Not even Quislings like Dowd really believe that crap. It's just bull crap. But the Democrats want to convince the public that Trump and the GOP uh, present present a danger to the public, to the republic, because after controlling the White House and Congress for 18 months, they have turned the nation's economy, immigration system, and foreign policy into a trio of blazing dumpster fires. Instead of doing their job, the Democrats have pursued the bad orange man with vehemence, and that Captain Ahab would find excessive. They also vilified the 74.2 million Americans who voted for Trump. That is dangerous. The Democrats' obsession with Trump is kind of a mass psychosis. And we talked about that before. The voters must remove them from power, and they will. I think the red wave is coming. But let me know what you think. Leave comments down below. Like, share, subscribe, and check out themarkrepublics.com for the latest in news. Until next time, peace.